The old monk used to say that every person carries two versions of themselves inside their body. One is a version trying to grow, to rise, to build a future that finally feels like it belongs to them. And the other is the version clinging to old habits and fears, because the past, no matter how painful, feels familiar. Most people spend their entire lives trying to silence one of these selves. But the monk said the goal wasn't to silence either. The goal was to understand which one you're feeding. There was a young man named Daigo who understood this struggle better than anyone. Throughout his life, whenever something good came close, an opportunity, a new beginning, a moment of change, he found ways to ruin it. Sometimes through hesitation, sometimes through fear, sometimes by convincing himself he wasn't ready. He did not understand why he kept destroying the very things he prayed for. One winter morning, after another night of watching his future slip away, Daigo made a decision. He climbed a narrow mountain path toward an old temple where a monk was rumored to help those trapped inside their own mind. The path was steep. The cold air burned his lungs. But for the first time in a long time, Daigo kept moving, even though a quiet voice inside him whispered, "Turn back. You'll fail again." He ignored it. When he reached the temple, he expected wisdom, philosophy, maybe even a ritual. Instead, the monk handed him a simple broom and pointed toward the courtyard. Daigo hesitated, confused. Was this a test? The monk gave no explanation. So Daigo swept the cold stones while the wind scattered leaves across the ground. Every time he cleared a corner, the wind ruined it again. Hours passed. His hands ached, but he kept sweeping. When the courtyard was finally clean, the monk returned. "How many times did the wind undo your work?" he asked. "Too many," Daigo said. "Every time I fixed something, the wind made a mess again." The monk nodded. "And yet, you kept sweeping." Daigo frowned. "What does that teach me?" "That your mind is the wind," the monk replied. "It will always blow thoughts and fears. You cannot stop it. Your job is only to continue sweeping." 4 days, the lessons were the same. Mundane tasks. Small repetitions. Nothing magical. Nothing groundbreaking. Daigo grew frustrated. He finally confronted the monk. "I came here to stop ruining my own life. Why won't you teach me anything real?" The monk looked at him for a long moment. "Because you want a battle," he said softly. "I'm showing you there is none." Daigo didn't understand. The monk continued. "You sabotage yourself because you believe you must fight yourself. What you fight, fights back. That is why the old you survives." That night, Daigo sat alone outside the temple, shivering in the quiet cold. And for the first time, he wondered if he had been approaching his entire life incorrectly, by trying to overpower himself instead of understanding himself. When he looked at the snow-covered courtyard, he realized every leaf he swept earlier had returned, and yet the act of sweeping had still mattered. This was the first time he truly felt something shift inside him. A small shift, almost invisible. But it was there. And hey, in this quiet moment, Daigo remembered something the monk had told another traveler who had once passed through the temple. The monk had said, "When the mind is tangled, pause, breathe, and ask yourself one simple question. What is the smallest step I can take right now?" The future belongs to the person who does not rush, but continues. For Daigo, that smallest step was to stay one more day, to trust the process one more time, to let himself be guided rather than force change. And for you, the listener following his journey, perhaps the smallest step is simply this, choosing not to give up on your own story, even if the wind inside your mind still blows. The monk's words echo across centuries, guiding anyone who hears them. Start small. Begin again. Continue. For Daigo, this was a real beginning. But the mountain had more to teach him. Lessons hidden beneath ice and silence. Lessons that would quietly erase his self-sabotage forever. The next morning, before the first light reached the courtyard, Daigo found the monk standing by a frozen lake behind the temple. The surface was milky white, still, silent. Beneath it, Daigo could hear the faint movement of trapped water shifting in slow currents. The monk pointed at the ice. "This is you," he said. Daigo stared. "What do you mean?" "You present a calm surface of the world," the monk replied. "But beneath that surface, everything is moving. confusion, fear, doubt. You have never learned to let the surface and the depths work together. So your actions fight your emotions. Your emotions fight your actions. And this tension becomes your sabotage. The monk placed a small pebble in Daigo's hand. Throw it. The pebble struck the ice with a hollow tap. Ripples spread beneath the frozen surface, unseen yet unmistakable. Your smallest actions, the monk said, create movement inside you, even when you believe nothing is changing. Daigo realized the monk's earlier lessons. The sweeping, the folding, the lighting of candles had never been about the tasks. They were about the ripples. For the first time, Daigo felt something like hope, not the dramatic kind that bursts and fades, but a quieter one, the kind that rests in the chest like a warm ember. As days passed, the monk taught him an ancient practice the samurai once used, Kaizen Kokyu, progress through breath. Before any action, however small, Daigo paused. He inhaled, grounding himself. He exhaled, letting the old self loosen its grip. And then he began the action, slowly, with intention. Before sweeping, he breathed. Before speaking, he breathed. Before doubting himself, he breathed. And little by little, Daigo noticed something strange. His fears still appeared, but they no longer had the same strength. His worries still whispered, but they no longer controlled his steps. The old version of him was still present, but it was beginning to feel out of place. One evening, as the sun lowered behind the mountains, Daigo sat on the temple steps beside the monk. "What if I fail when I leave here?" he asked quietly. "What if the old version of me returns?" The monk folded his hands. "Then let him return. Let him sit beside you. Let him speak. But don't give him the brush to paint your future." Daigo breathed in slowly. "It's that simple?" The monk shook his head. "Nothing simple. Only clear." He continued, "You do not overcome self-sabotage by force. You overcome it by continuity. If you break your chain of progress, begin again. If fear appears, breathe again. If doubt returns, step again. You do not need perfection. You only need to continue." Daigo fell silent, letting the words sink into the deepest parts of him. He realized that all his life he had placed impossible expectations on himself. Massive goals, dramatic changes, overnight transformations. And every time he failed to meet these unrealistic demands, he punished himself. The punishment became a habit. The habit became identity. The identity became sabotage. But hey, in this quiet temple, with a sweeping broom and a frozen lake, he had learned something far more powerful. Identity doesn't change through force. It changes through gentle repetition. When spring came and snow melted off the mountains, Daigo packed his small bag. The temple bells rang softly as he bowed to the monk. "What if the world overwhelms me again?" he asked. The monk smiled, then returned to the smallest step. One breath, one movement, one moment of awareness. Your future is built in these tiny moments, repeated without breaking the chain. Daigo began his journey down the mountain. The steps felt lighter now, as if the path had shifted beneath him, and though the wind still blew against his face, he did not feel threatened by it. He breathed in, he breathed out, and he kept walking. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. And slowly, Daigo discovered something profound. The old version of him still tried to return, but it no longer had a home. Every breath created distance. Every small step created a new identity, and every moment of continuity formed a new life. He found himself reacting differently to challenges. Instead of collapsing under pressure, he paused. Instead of sabotaging opportunities, he took small steps. Instead of attacking himself, he guided himself. And instead of drowning in thoughts, he stood firm on the quiet ground he had built with patience. The monk's final teaching echoed in his mind every day. Change is not an event. Change is a direction. Daigo had spent years waiting for a dramatic turning point. But now, he realized the truth. The turning point wasn't a moment. It was a decision, repeated gently, continuously, without breaking. And so, he walked into his new life, not as a perfect man, not as a fearless man, but as a man willing to continue, breath after breath, step after step, day after day. The wind still blew. But Daigo, Daigo kept sweeping.